Chapter 2: Why We Fall into the Perfectionist Parenting Trap. How the fear of judgment drives perfectionism in parenting. One of the most powerful forces that drives perfectionist parenting is the quiet but constant fear of judgment. As parents, you probably feel like the world is watching, from neighbors who notice when your child has a meltdown in public, to family members who make offhand comments about how you should be raising your kids. Even if no one says anything outright, you sense the unspoken evaluations, the raised eyebrows, the comparisons, the silent disapproval. That fear of being seen as a bad parent often pushes you to work harder, strive for flawless appearances, and silence your own instincts in favor of what you think will earn approval. Layered on top of that fear is the heavy weight of social comparison. In today's world, it feels almost impossible not to compare. You see another parent who seems endlessly patient, or a child who's excelling at sports, or families who appear more connected and joyful than yours. Without realizing it, you start measuring your own parenting against these snapshots. But here's the catch: you're comparing your behind-the-scenes reality, the mess, the meltdowns, the fatigue, with someone else's curated highlight reel. And that comparison is never fair. Still, it convinces you that you're falling short, fueling the urge to overcompensate by striving for impossible standards. Fear of judgment and social comparison feed each other in a vicious cycle. You compare yourself, feel inadequate, and then push yourself harder so others won't think less of you. But the harder you try, the more pressure you feel to keep it up, because you're afraid of being found out as imperfect. It becomes a performance, carefully managing how your children behave in public, how your home looks to guests, even how you present your family on social media. Instead of focusing on connection with your kids, your attention shifts to appearances, always asking, "What will people think?" The danger is that this constant performance steals joy not only from you, but also from your children. When you're consumed by fear of judgment, your kids often pick up on it. They might feel pressure to behave perfectly in public or to achieve in school so that others will think well of their family. Instead of learning that they are loved unconditionally, they may start to feel that love is tied to performance, to being impressive enough for the outside world. That's the hidden cost of parenting through fear of judgment. It doesn't just weigh on you, it shapes your child's sense of self, too. The truth is, every parent makes mistakes. Every child has messy moments. That's what makes us human. But perfectionist parenting convinces you that mistakes are unacceptable because they might invite judgment or comparison. Breaking free begins with noticing when you're parenting for appearances rather than for connection. Ask yourself, am I making this choice because it's what my child truly needs, or because I'm afraid of what others will think? The more you can shift toward love over fear, the lighter parenting becomes. And the beautiful thing? When you release that fear, you give both yourself and your child the freedom to be real, imperfect, and deeply connected. Everyday scenarios of fear of judgment in parenting. Picture this: you're at the grocery store with your toddler, and everything is fine until they spot candy at the checkout. You say no, and suddenly you're dealing with a full-on meltdown, screaming, kicking, tears rolling down their face. Instead of focusing on your child's emotions, your first thought is, "Everyone is staring. They must think I can't control my child." In that moment, your parenting decisions aren't guided by what your child needs, but by the invisible audience you feel is judging you. Or maybe you've been to a birthday party where your child clung to your leg instead of joining the games. You notice the other kids running, laughing, fitting in easily, while yours seemed shy and withdrawn. Instead of reassuring yourself that kids have different personalities and warm up in their own time, you felt the prickling thought, "What will the other parents think? They must be wondering what's wrong with my child or with me." That fear of judgment steals your peace and makes you second-guess your child's typical temperament. Here's another common one: your teenager has a soccer game, and they're playing their heart out but miss a few goals. You clap, smile, and cheer, but deep down you feel uneasy. You notice the other parents whose kids seem to shine, and a voice inside whispers, "Are they thinking my child isn't good enough?" That anxiety might even spill over later when you coach your teen more harshly than needed, not because you're disappointed in them, but because you're afraid of how others perceive you as their parent. And then there's the pressure of the online world. Maybe you scroll through Instagram and see another mom who baked a 3-tier cake for her child's birthday while you picked one up from the store. Or a dad who posts about a family camping trip while you barely managed a backyard barbecue. You feel the sting of comparison, as if your love for your children is measured by how picture-perfect your life looks online. The fear of being seen as less than slowly nudges you into striving harder, not for your family's joy, but for validation. These moments may feel small, but together they reveal how deeply fear of judgment and social comparison influence parenting. Each time you shift your focus away from connection and toward appearances, you take a step into the perfectionist trap. The good news? Once you can name these moments and recognize them for what they are, you begin to loosen their grip. You can smile at the tantrum in the store, let your shy child cling without shame, cheer for your teen's effort, or serve that store-bought cake with pride. Because in the end, your worth and your child's worth was never meant to be measured by other people's opinions. The childhood roots of perfectionism in parenting. Many of the pressures you feel today as a parent didn't begin when you had kids. They were planted long ago, back when you were a child. If you grew up in a home where love and approval often felt tied to performance, whether that meant good grades, polite behavior, or keeping the peace, you may have learned early on that mistakes were dangerous. Maybe a harsh word, a disappointed look, or even silence followed whenever you fell short. Over time, you absorbed the message, if I do everything right, I'll be safe and loved. If I mess up, I risk rejection. For some, the roots go even deeper into family culture. Perhaps you had parents who worked hard to maintain appearances, making sure the outside world only saw a polished version of the family. Inside the home, emotions might not have been freely expressed, or weaknesses weren't talked about. As a child, you may have felt pressure to represent your family well, to be good so no one would think less of you. That kind of environment can plant seeds of perfectionism, teaching you to believe your value is wrapped up in how others see you. Others might have grown up in unpredictable homes, where love and support were inconsistent. One day, your parent was warm and affectionate, but the next, they were critical or distant. In that kind of setting, perfectionism becomes a survival strategy. You tell yourself, if I do everything perfectly, maybe I can keep the peace, avoid conflict, or win their approval. Even as an adult, that coping mechanism sticks, showing up in your parenting as the relentless drive to get it right for your children. Even well-meaning parents can unintentionally pass on perfectionistic patterns. Perhaps you were praised only when you achieved, for grades, sports, or accomplishments, but not simply for being yourself. Or maybe mistakes were met with quick correction rather than gentle guidance. As a child, you longed for unconditional acceptance, and without realizing it, you now push yourself to give your kids what you didn't always feel you had. Ironically, though, unless you recognize these old patterns, they can sneak into your parenting in the very same ways you once experienced. This is why it's so important to pause and look back with compassion. Recognizing the childhood roots of perfectionist parenting isn't about blaming your parents, most did the best they could with what they knew. It's about understanding where those voices in your head come from, so they don't control how you raise your children. When you notice yourself striving for flawlessness or fearing mistakes, you can gently remind yourself, this is an old story, but I don't have to keep living it. My children need love, not perfection. And so do I. That awareness is the first step toward breaking the cycle and creating a different, freer legacy for your own kids. The myth of an ideal parent. Remember, the idea of a perfect parent is an illusion which leads to nothing but repetitive disappointments and frustration. One of the biggest myths that feeds the perfectionist parenting trap is the idea of the ideal parent. You know, the one endlessly patient, always present, never raising their voice, cooking balanced meals every day, organizing picture-perfect playdates, and somehow juggling work, home, and self-care without breaking a sweat. This image is everywhere, in books, blogs, social media, and even in the stories we tell ourselves. It's an impossible standard, yet so many parents quietly measure themselves against it, feeling inadequate whenever reality doesn't match the picture in their heads. The problem is, the ideal parent isn't real. It's a composite built from bits and pieces of what we see in others. Maybe your friend is creative with crafts, another parent is calm in public, and someone else seems to have the perfect career-family balance. Perfectionism tricks you into combining all those traits into one flawless figure and then expecting yourself to become that person. But no parent, not even the ones you admire, has it all together all the time. They have their own struggles, doubts, and messy moments that you don't see. When you chase the myth of the ideal parent, you end up missing the parent your children actually need, you. Instead of leaning into your own strengths, your unique humor, warmth, creativity, or perspective, you try to mold yourself into someone else's idea of good enough. That pressure doesn't just exhaust you, it also creates distance between you and your kids. They don't need flawless, they need real. They need to see how you handle mistakes, how you apologize, how you keep loving them through both the smooth and the stormy moments. That's where trust and connection grow. The truth is, the myth of the ideal parent fuels the perfectionist trap by keeping you stuck in comparison and self-criticism. It whispers, if you were truly a good mom, you'd do it like her, or if you were a better dad, you'd never mess up like that. But every time you chase that illusion, you drain yourself of the joy and authenticity that make parenting meaningful. Letting go of the myth doesn't mean lowering your love or care, it means accepting that the best parent your child could ever have is not some idealized figure. It's you, imperfect and human, showing up consistently with love. Check the description for links to Chapter 3 and downloadable ebook version of this content. Please like, comment, subscribe, and share your parenting experience in the comments section. On this channel, we share science-backed, practical parenting knowledge you can start using today. Thanks for watching.